water is written and storied in so many ways across Indigenous cultures. And I think the way that we draw to our own creation stories, our own cosmogonies, and our own local stories affirms your positionality and your being, but also connects you to a global community that share, you know, in essence, a connection to wai or vai or water.
My interest in nature-based solutions basically comes from my background in cultural heritage, because our cultures in the Pacific are naturally resilient and have a legacy of nature-based solutions. Basically, thousands of years of nature-based solutions to ongoing climate change in the Pacific. We are now facing an unprecedented level of climate change, and so these traditional nature-based solutions are being tested to their limits in many instances. In some instances, they are proving to be no longer effective. In some instances, they are the only effective, really, measure we can use. But we're very fortunate in the Pacific that we have that whole repertoire of nature-based solutions in our heritage and culture. It's not something we need to learn or find from somewhere else. We actually have the best solutions in our cultures. And often our work in climate change and development in Vanuatu these days is really just to help communities to revitalize those nature-based solutions, give assistance where needed to make them more suitable, stronger, more adapted to the more extreme climate change we're experiencing now.
The main issue that we see right now is the sea level rise impact, right? The storm centers are the ones that really impact or really take away or erode the coastline. These are exacerbated when we have cyclones. During cyclones, you can have distant swell, you can have, much more higher wind. With that wind, we have very high amount of action, wave action that really erodes all the land away. So these are the impacts, these are the areas apart from just the sea level rise that really impact coastal communities or atoll communities on a monthly basis, I would say. Not just that, saltwater intrusion into its water lenses or underground aquifers is massive. Several research publications out there that speaks the same, and the latest research, as I've said, is done by SPC that has done a full detailed analysis on the groundwater recharge and the damage that has already been done.
I went to a community on Akam Island, which is an island on the south, a little small island off the south of the island of Malakula, which directly faces the southeast prevailing winds. And they've been experiencing sea level rise eroding the coastline on one side of the island very fast. They did one solution based on their knowledge of the currents and how the prevailing winds and currents of the sea work. Just this year, which suddenly worked, and suddenly the land is really moving out again. The church has basically been saved.
Communities in our small atolls, especially in Kiribati, they've banned the use of seawall because it is one of the strategy that over 3 to 4 decades attempted to use and install the usual conventional way of adaptation, which is seawall protection measures, which haven't really worked for many atolls and low-lying islands. And it causes maladaptation in the essence that it exacerbates the existing vulnerability, and it washes away every time a tropical cyclone, and it creates massive and excessive coastal erosion. So for communities in Samoa and Tonga, what we find out is now they're using boulders. And not only boulders, we asked some communities in Samoa, and they said, yes, boulders is a good, it's a good way of restoring the seawalls, as it has the ability, it doesn't have a flat surface. It has the ability to absorb the energy of the waves. But what if there is a tsunami? If there's a tsunami, then the boulders too gonna come with the waves, and make ravaging impact to the villages and people and communities. But we found out that they've used totem trees like ironwood. Ironwood is a very strong tree that has robust root systems, and they've planted this ironwood within the boulders, and then the roots of those, and we've also found it in Cook Island, the root of iron trees at the totem. Pacific peoples are born into tribes and families, and they have their totems, and one of those totems is the ironwood for those places. So the root system hold on to the boulders, and then you have the mitigating effect of mangroves, which are planted towards the seaside. And so the waves are absorbed, the energy of the waves are absorbed by some mangroves, and then the leftover is absorbed by the slanting structures of boulders and ironwood. And so most of the communities over there, especially in Tonga where I did my case study, said that it has really benefited their communities compared to the normative seawall.
A coastal adaptation project is using a magnitude of different types of methodologies, using green and grey, or combination of both, that will also recharge the groundwater lenses, at the same time ability to filter and capture the water through a natural vegetation. The plan is to redo the coast and then redo the entire vegetation as well. Other techniques that they're using is desalination, by the way. So, for example, Tuvalu has a desalination plant, but that is not able to service the entire outer islands. But these are portable desalinations that works with the solar system. So these are small, they have the ability to desalinate water, and this water can be, as I've said, salt water. You can desalinate the necessary drinking water for the islands. They also use nature-based solutions. They've started to plant, they're trying to recharge the underground aquifers, but it's again a slow process because they do not have the luxury of land available. There isn't much land, and that too, whatever the land is available gets eroded by salt water. So it's a very tricky situation in atoll islands as opposed to volcanic islands.
Returning to the connectivity to the moana or expansive ocean, it's realizing that the connections there are locally based. So, from one village to another, they're not always exactly the same practices around stewardship or care. And those have matured over years and years of intimate relationship that have absolutely endured, but also that intergenerational commitment to teach that to the next generation. I think it's also realizing the place of moana as a teacher to people. So while you can learn the sciences around it, there is a certain part of observation, honing a wielded literacy to reading the environment that takes years of practice. And so it's really knowing the way the water speaks. It's the way that you enter into it. It's the way that you exit it. It's the way that you pause. But also realizing that is your classroom growing up in the village. That is your classroom. That is the context that you walk. That is your teacher. Children in the village understand that, and the elders in the village who talk about their experiences, and they understand it. They understand the way that the corals are changing. They understand the way that the fish are moving differently. And I believe that they sense it spiritually, as in the life force and flows. So how can we elevate those voices and make that more visible in our very own communities?